Europeans arriving in the New World in the late 1400s met many large and powerful civilizations, each with different cultures, traditions, and languages. The total native population in what is now modern-day America was as high as 18 million people. The intention of this video is to give you an insight into the various cultures of the people who lived in what has become the United States. The first people to arrive in North America were hunter-gatherers, who followed the woolly mammoth and other huge animals as they migrated across the land bridge connecting Asia with North America. These people were called Archaic Indians, and they lived in small groups of about 24 people. Their social and political relations were egalitarian. They did not plant or store food, so they were always on the edge of extinction. At the end of the Ice Age, or around 10,000 BCE, these people had to adapt to the changing environment. As the temperatures rose, many of the huge animals that they had hunted in the past became extinct. The Paleo-Indians began to create small villages. Tools became more advanced, and they began to store food. They also began to adapt their environment to their needs by burning the undergrowth to create an ideal environment for deer to graze on. By 3000 BCE, there may have been as many as 1 million Archaic Indians living in North America. As the environment changed, so too did the native cultures in North America. We will learn about some of these cultures next. The first tribe to reside in the eastern woodlands was the Mississippian Mound Builders, who utilized the prime growing conditions to begin cultivating crops by 700 BCE. They were known for building giant mounds to bury their dead in. They created cities with as many as 30,000 inhabitants. The Mississippian Mound Builders disappeared mysteriously, but archaeologists have posited theories that these large cities became breeding grounds for disease as a result of poor sanitation systems. At the same time that the Mississippi Mound Builders disappeared, other tribes began to develop. Two of these tribes were the Iroquois in the Great Lakes region and the Algonquins in the northeastern United States. The Iroquois were matrilocal. Husbands moved in with their wives' clans. Both groups practiced a slash-and-burn method of agriculture, or the clearing and burning of forests, to plant corn and other vegetables until they exhausted the soil, at which time they would move on to another area. These groups were also prone to war. One theory suggests that as agriculture became more efficient and women's prestige increased, men resorted to warfare to increase their own prestige. This picture depicts an early lacrosse game, which simulated what life was like on a battlefield. By the time Europeans arrived in North America, many Iroquois tribes had created a confederacy to limit fighting and strengthen them against external enemies. This allowed them to hold out longer than other tribes against the incursions of Europeans. Despite the popular imagery of the Plains Indians, they did not have access to horses until after the Spanish introduced them to the Great Plains in the 16th century. Plains Indians became farmers at the end of the Archaic period, with women in charge of the farming and men hunting buffalo. It was only until after the Spanish brought horses that they became nomadic and began following the buffalo migration. The Indians of the desert had their culture shaped by their environment. They had to adapt to the extremely arid climate. These are the people who used mud to create adobe pueblos. The Anasazis were one of the largest tribes of the desert Indians, and created trading centers with as many as 15,000 people living in the area. Like the Mound Builders, these groups disappeared mysteriously. Recently, archaeologists have suggested that a combination of prolonged drought, war, and a new religion pulled many of the Anasazi away, forming the Hopi and Zuni tribes. The Indians of the Pacific Coast hunted fish and animals in the area. The abundant edible plant life meant that they did not have the necessity to farm. This lush environment provided a surplus of food and goods for the natives there. This allowed them to devote time to creating art such as totem poles. Although many of the native peoples who lived north of the Rio Grande River were farmers or hunter-gatherers, some cultures in the south developed complex political economies, technology, and culture. In Central America, the Mayan civilization developed a writing system and mathematics. In southern Mexico, the Aztecs dominated the region until their defeat at the hands of the Spanish and Indian alliance. Finally, in Peru, The Incan Empire had just reached its high point when the Spanish arrived. As you have learned from this video, the various groups living in the Americas were much more numerous and advanced than previously thought. The environment in which they lived played a vital role in determining what type of culture these groups would develop. Thank you for watching this video. This has been a Mr. Kaz production.